Olá, meu nome é Marcos e hoje vamos falar com Josh Middleton, guitarrista vocalista da banda Sylosis, que no dia 20 de fevereiro lançará o novo álbum The New Flash. Com vocês, Josh Middleton. Hey, Josh, uh, I heard your new record, The New Flash, and it is amazing. I loved the songs are very, very brutal, and I think my favorite tracks are Spared from the Guillotine, Adorn My Throne is very good, and Lacerations. It is amazing. Erased as well. Erased has like that moment that is like also on socials. I think this album is one of the best material we have ever recorded. Um, do you think this is something of the best that you have ever recorded?
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, I think so. I think that's fair to say for all of us. It's kind of a bit of a cliche, but yeah, I think it's probably the most collaborative record we've done, and sort of solidified like the new lineup a bit more. And I think there's just a bit more excitement around the songs. We kind of changed our approach a little bit with the writing on A Sign of Things to Come. And after touring that record, we could then refine, the things that worked and that we enjoyed or needed work. But yeah, I think the this time around we entered the studio not unprepared, but we sort of booked the studio before the songs were really finished. We had all the songs, but it was really like the last month or couple of weeks just before we went to start tracking drums where all the songs just got worked on, just revamped or just last minute changes, just and that pressure I think really helped just make them the best they could be, and like really makes you think like this has to be incredible. Like what can we do to make this better or more memorable, or more fun and exciting? And typically I don't like the thought of having like pressure like that. I like to know that we've finished everything and then we book the studio. But I think it helped kind of really force us to think even harder.
And nowadays, there's a landscape, even in music industry, dominated by social media algorithms and influencer guitarists who focus on 15 seconds viral tracks or tricks. Do you feel that the art of writing a 6 minute cohesive heavy journey is becoming a form of resistance?
Um, I mean, I guess it could be. Yeah, I don't think we will go back to doing long songs like that because we used to have 6 minute songs like when we did our second album, Measure the Earth. But we found, we play a festival and you've got 25 minutes to play, and then you can only play like four songs. Maybe my maths didn't add up then, but yeah, I personally don't have the attention span for really long songs. I know Everywhere at Once is pushing, that's over 5 minutes, but typically we like to make things a bit more concise. Still try and pack the songs with as much excitement and as many riffs as we can, but just make sure it doesn't drag on too long.
And we see many new artists prioritizing aesthetic and the perfect feed over the grid of a rehearsal room. You've mentioned wanting to capture that first band practice energy. How do you maintain that raw, authentic spirit when the industry seems to reward those who play the content creator game?
Um, I don't know. I think there's so many different outlets for heavy music, or there's so many different types of heavy music. I mean, and so many different types of fans that I think some people are kind of sick of hearing stuff that's really polished and overproduced. Um, uh, but yeah, I think I just think back to the stuff that got me into heavy music, or that excitement of when you first have a band practice and you've got everything cranked up and it feels kind of energizing. And I think the way that I've always written the past, like, you know, over 15 years, and most bands write, is sat in front of a computer. So it doesn't really feel exciting like it does when you're, you know, jamming at a really loud rehearsal room. So it's just things like just thinking about. Sometimes I write songs or start writing a song, I'll be in the shower just trying to imagining what a song could sound like, what would a good opening song sound like, or if one of my favorite bands was to release a new album, what would I want the song to sound like? So a lot of, you know, quote unquote writing happens without a guitar in my hands. Well, then sometimes I'll play guitar stood up as if it's a show, and it puts me in a different like headspace. And I think I've been guilty in the past of just being in front of a computer, and it's just more about, I think when you get too focused too much on getting better at your songwriting and your instrument, that you can sometimes lose some of the exciting energy when you're a kid and you don't really know what you're doing.
And I think this album is full of riffs and is very, very modern metal focused. And you once said that you rarely hear a great riff in modern metal. Within the rise of AI-assisted songwriting and hyper-edited productions that remove every human mistake, do you think metal is losing its danger? How did you ensure that the new Flash sounded like a living, breathing band?
No, so there was a lot to think about in that question. Yeah, so I think there's always going to be people that want to hear stuff, you know, sound a bit more human, and I think there's still a ton of bands out there that put out very raw and organic productions, even like newer bands. I think you just have to look more to the underground for. I think there's loads of bands kind of resisting that really modern, polished sound out there in heavy music. I think it's more just that sort of really proper, big, modern metalcore stuff that you just hear the same mix and everything. And I think for us, yeah, we pride ourselves on our musicianship, so we want it to sound as tight as possible, but we can do it in a way that you can tell that it's a human playing it, and it just taking your time in the studio to get the best performances, as opposed to relying on computers to piece it together or play it for you.
Mm-hmm. And we are seeing also a culture of perfection, where every note is quantized to a grid. Having done academic research on heaviness, do you believe that true sonic weight comes from the performance soul or from the digital tools we use to polish it?
I don't know if I fully understand the question, but I
No,
think
I can
I think
repeat.
heaviness. I mean, I think heaviness to a degree comes from an intensity. I always think back to when I got into heavy music. It was through a lot of the new metal stuff in the late '90s, early 2000s, and there was a producer, Ross Robinson, who, no matter which band he produced, even if it was not really a metal band, like he worked with bands like At the Drive-In and stuff, it still had that intensity to it, on the way that I think particularly like the vocal performances and that kind of thing. So I think putting a lot of effort into the vocals feeling raw and honest is important. I think a lot of vocalists out there double track their vocals these days, but that just means you have to be perfect every single time. So there's no room for, you know, if you just do something that just takes you by the spur of the moment in the studio as a vocalist, that's, you know, raw and emotional, but then you have to go back and match it perfectly, it's kind of pointless to me. So I never double track the vocals. So I think I want the vocals to be, you know, intense and raw sounding. And then for the music, yeah, I think heaviness, to a degree, it does help when you're tight as a band and everything is in time, because if the guitarist is rushing ahead of the drummer and the guitarist like starts chugging ahead of the kick drum coming in, there's something, you know, when we get kind of technical from a production standpoint, where you lose impact because you want to hear the kick drum, you want the bass to be just behind the beat, and then you have all that weight kind of. So yeah, if you did mention getting quite academic about the production side of things, so yeah, I think being a tight band but trying to play things, you know, particularly I'm sat next to our drummer just here, who's
Hi.
a powerhouse in the studio, and like he, you know, he hits super hard and consistently. So I think capturing heaviness, you can hear it if you've played everything in properly. And we still pride ourselves, like I say, on being as tight as we can and performing to a high standard. But trying to do that without relying on technology to cheat means you capture the heaviness and the human side of things, but it still holds up against, you know, all the other modern metal stuff because it's still tight, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned circle or swords is about the feeling that everyone is out to get you. Does this reflect the current call-out or cancel culture we see on social media? And how has that influenced your mindset as a veteran in the scene?
It's not about that. No, it's not about cancel culture. It's just like personal stuff for me. And cancel culture in general is kind of, it's not something that I pay too much attention to. I think one of the benefits, one of the pros of maybe not cancel culture, but just people are more accountable now for their actions, and people can't get away with things as much as maybe they used to, like 20 years ago before social media. So in some ways, I think it outs people who have, you know, been scumbags. And then, you know, it can go too far to the point where people are getting called out for liking a band or being friends with a band that knows a band that has been cancelled for something, and it gets a bit kind of, the waters get a bit murky with trying to be the most righteous person. But yeah, the song's not about that. But in terms of where I stand, I mean, I'd like to think that I'm a person that's not going to have too many skeletons in the closet. But I don't know if some of our crew might say the opposite when I give them a little pinch on the arm now and then.
And you've always felt like on many interviews you said you felt like an outsider to mainstream society. Now that
Yeah.
metal is becoming trendy again on platforms like TikTok, for example, does it feel strange to see the outsider culture being packaged and sold as a digital trend?
Well, so that again,
The part that since TikTok is getting like viral with a lot of musicians and metal related artists, isn't it strange an outsider being packaged and sold as a digital trend?
oh, I mean, I don't know. I guess I don't really feel like that. Personally, I don't have the login to our TikTok, so I'm not too sure if there's anything on there anyway. So I don't think I feel like I'm being packaged or sold in any way. Everything we do is pretty authentic, and you know, the label, you know, suggests things for the press and stuff, and we can always say no. So I don't typically do anything that I'm not comfortable with. So I don't think I feel like that. I mean, there are some bands that are huge, you know, and like maybe I think pop stars in particular can feel a bit more like a commodity. I can't remember what Halsey's issue was with her label, and there was some stuff, you know, where it affects people like that. But for the metal world, I don't think it's really something to consider.
Because I saw some influencers talking about Sylosis and about your riffs and everything. Not exactly you as Josh, but as Sylosis and as riffing and how the music is influencing other people as trending, not
Okay.
especially the band, but the the package of what you deliver as music, you know. But
Well, that's always flattering. Yeah, if people are inspired by what we do, then I mean that's always been the case. You know, 30, 40 years ago even. Um, but now there's just different ways that people can just directly mimic something and be seen. Whereas back in the day, if you were inspired by a band, you had to join a band, and then you'd have to try and get signed, and then release a record that would probably come out like 2 years later, as opposed to it being instant like today.
and I love the title for this new album, the new Flash, and is it like your way of showing the new flash of the scene, what real metal actually sounds like, or is it like has nothing to do with this?
Well, I like that analogy, but no, I mean it didn't really come from that. The song itself is kind of about two different things. Sometimes my lyrics are just somewhat of like a sketch, just ramblings or musings, I guess. So the song, yeah, it's kind of two things at once. So it was partly about how, if you look at the state of the world today and how depressing things can be, I find myself looking, I see interviews with people that have done psychedelics and they do DMT and ayahuasca, and they have this experience where, they just say, oh, we're all just one consciousness, and they all have these same experiences. Or you see on the other side of things like physicists talking about how this could just be a simulation we're living in. And I see myself as someone who was brought up like militantly atheist, looking at people talking about that kind of stuff, like, oh wow, wouldn't that be nice if all of this was just an illusion and what waits for us on the other side is much better. And it's exactly how I view religious people, and they view heaven and that kind of things. So some of the lyrics are to do with that, and then I guess the other part of the song, it's just kind of about, accepting mortality and getting older. So the song title was originally Manifestations of the New Flesh, which is a line in the chorus. And then we were on tour doing festivals in June, and our drummer Ali said, get rid of that first bit, let's call the album The New Flesh. And then, it's also like kind of solidifying the new lineup in the band that's been solid now for a few years. And I feel like we're firing on all cylinders and playing live better than we ever have done. So the initial song wasn't about that, but I guess you can apply the title to various different things. But like you said, yeah, if it's a statement of showing the rest of the world what good metal sounds like, yeah, that's cool with me.
And you wrote this album with the live environment in mind, in a world where people often watch concerts through a smartphone screen. What is the one thing you want the audience to feel physically when they hear these songs live this year?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of have like an expression in the band that when a riff's like so good or so heavy, or just the intensity of the song is so good, it makes you want to flip a table. So that's kind of our barometer for if we've achieved our goal with a certain riff or a section. Yeah, I mean, it's how good a riff is, or how you build up to a riff coming in. And yeah, I think I'd like our fans to experience, the feeling I had when I was a kid listening to like Slipknot for the first time, or something on the Great Southern Trainkill, where I just literally was like, I can't believe how heavy this is. It's so fun. I just want to like trash my bedroom. So if we can make our fans, whether they're kids or fully grown adults, want to trash their bedroom, then we've done our job.
And when are you guys coming to South America, especially Brazil? Brazil is waiting for you for their time right now.
Well, yeah, I'd love to go to Brazil, and we see comments every now and then, but we also know a lot of bands that see a lot of come to Brazil comments, and then they go to Brazil and no one goes to the shows. So, yeah, it's basically a matter of getting the offers. Like, no promoters have reached out, no one's offered us a tour over there, so that's why we don't come. It's not up to the band. Like, obviously, I'm sure you know this, but a lot of maybe fans kind of assume that the band has any input into booking their shows. But yeah, if the right offer comes towards us, then that'd be great. I've only ever been to Mexico City. That's the only South American place I've been to for a show, and it was amazing. But yeah, I'd love to go to Brazil. Sepultura is one of my favorite bands. I'm looking at a Sepultura poster right now in this office. We're in the offices of our tour bus company on a day off right now. So yeah, I'd love to, but it's unfortunately the offer has to come to us, and some Brazilian promoters, if they want us, they have to send some offers to our booking agents.
Awesome. So, final words for people that need to hear the new Flash coming out on the 20th February.
Yeah, I just hope everyone enjoys it as much as we do. Very excited to get it out there, and to our Brazilian fans, thanks for being patient. I'm sure we'll make it happen at some point.
Okay, Josh. Thank you so much. Have a great
No
time
worries.
and hope to see you soon.
Cool. Thanks a lot. Take care.
Bye
Bye.
bye.